up from the floor at him. And that's sort of kind of etched in my mind, that wonderful memory of just seeing his effulgent feet. And then, kind of working my way up from the feet, up to his golden smile.
During kirtan, Prabhupada was so enthusiastic and always encouraging the person who was leading. He would be looking around the room, and I myself personally, I was feeling like I could touch the ceiling. I'd be jumping as high as I could, and I just felt like there was no bounds. And I was also, I think, feeling that we were all kind of like little puppies jumping up and down in great joy, happiness, seeing our spiritual master. So Prabhupada was always encouraging, looking around, and he'd be, with his gong, he would take the hammer, and he would be gesturing, waving it up and down for everybody to dance. Prabhupada also, he had such perception. Sometimes in my mind, I'd be thinking, I was young. Oh, I wish Prabhupada would look over here. I wish he would look at me. All of a sudden, Prabhupada would be looking directly at me, piercing me with his eyes, and I felt very foolish. But Prabhupada always fulfilled your desires that way. So it was always a special experience every day for months, being able to have that mercy of dancing in front of Prabhupada. And then, of course, during Jai Radha Madhava, Prabhupada himself would be so absorbed sometimes he would stop being choked up. And I remember how Prabhupada would talk. He would say, actually, I'm just a kirtan man.
One time we were on the beach walking like this, and the crabs were going out, and crabs were running into the water as it was coming in. So Prabhupada indicated that they had a relationship, and he was explaining that a big elephant cannot go against the waves of the sea, even though he's so strong, but a little fish can swim out against the waves, and the reason is because the fish has an intimate relationship with the sea. In the same way, a devotee can surpass all others because of his intimate relationship with Krishna. He can do things that non-devotees cannot accomplish.
In Los Angeles, I would take Prabhupada out for his morning walk, and one day he would go to Venice Beach, and one day he would go to Cheviot Hills Park, a big beautiful park with a golf course. And one day he would go to the very wealthy part of Beverly Hills. And there was one house that had plate glass windows in the front, and every time he would walk by that house, a big German Shepherd would come up and bark at the window. So this one day we're walking by that house, and the person in the house opened the front door and let the dog out. And the dog came running across the front yard towards Prabhupada. And I thought I was going to die in protection of my spiritual master. So I turned around and faced the dog, and Prabhupada had paid almost no attention. He just kept walking. He was 10 or 15 steps ahead of me. So I turned around and ran to catch up, and the dog started chasing along the grass. Never came onto the sidewalk. And as I got close to Prabhupada, he just turned around and took a wide stance, picked his cane up over his head, and just one hut, and the dog was just shot back to the house. And he said, if you say hut to an animal, they'll respect you. And take a stick. He said, if you take a stick and say hut, they'll respect. So later on we were in Jaipur, and they had given Prabhupada a room in the palace, Jaipur Palace. And one of the big monkeys, the langus, had torn the door off the kitchen and eaten all the boba. So they replaced the door, and I was in Prabhupada's room on a day that just happened to be filled with a lot of people, including influential meeting guests. And we kept the stick inside the back door. All of a sudden there's a noise outside. You can hear this door rattling. And I look out the screen, and there's a monkey trying to take the door off the kitchen. So I picked up the stick, remembering the dog, remembering Prabhupada's example, and went out and got 6 feet or 8 feet away from the monkey, And as he heard me come, he turned around and stood up. And as he stood up, I lifted the stick up and went, "Hut!" And he looked at me, and he puffed his chest up, and he bared his teeth, and he growled, and he started walking towards me. And I ran. I turned around and ran back in Prabhupada's room. And he and all of his guests just broke out laughing. He said, "You do not know the process." And then he laughed more. He said, "If you had said hut again," he was testing you. "If you had done it twice, you would have backed away."
A couple of days a week you were at the incense factory. A couple of days you were on Sankirtan. And, and then between that and cooking offerings and distributing books as well, it was just like you were running all the time. There was a schedule all the time. There was always something to do. Your life was full of Krishna, of service, But I think one of the biggest joys for me was the sense of community, the sense that you had Prabhupada at the center, that you were all working for a common goal. You were all spiritual pilgrims, really, on a path together, sharing prasadam together, and multitasking. It was exciting. It was really, really exciting. The kirtans, I remember, you'd run home and you after your thing, you'd take a shower and then you'd run to Aarti. And then you'd dance your heart out, and sing and dance your heart out. And then there'd be a class and you'd do garlands or something to stay awake, And then you'd put the deities to sleep, and then you'd get everything ready for the morning, and then you'd get your few hours, and the next day would come and you'd be, you had your deity worship or cooking your offerings. And life was so full. And we had so much energy then too. And we were totally focused on doing what we were doing. And so there was this big temple, which was the biggest temple when I joined in ISKCON. I think there were 75 devotees there then. And that was like massive. And New Dwarka was the hub of book publishing. The DVT headquarters was in New Dwarka. And Prabhupada said, print books was like one of the core services of the ISKCON movement. And here in New Dwarka was, opulent temple, beautiful deity, but it was a very effervescent community, very sparkly, and it was driven by our desire to please Srila Prabhupada. And I think when Prabhupada came, it was like God was coming. Krishna was himself coming, and all the stops were pulled out. And, you were up for days and nights just making sure that everything was really done to as paka as possible. And I think in some way Prabhupada, when he came, he just, appreciated our enthusiasm and our dedication. And it was an absolutely rich experience. And, I'm very thankful I had all those years.
Somebody coming to the Sunday Peace program in Los Angeles owned a 16mm camera and was a film student, and apparently coached Karanda about filming Srila Prabhupada. So I think it was Karanda's idea to have Prabhupada give Bhagavad Gita classes. So this was a staged situation. The idea was to film Prabhupada speaking Bhagavad Gita, which would be applicable for the people in general, and have something for television.
I shall speak on Bhagavad Gita as it is. The purpose of saying Bhagavad Gita as it is explained that there are many editions of Bhagavad Gita. They are interpreted in their own way, giving up the spirit of Bhagavad Gita. So this particular name, as it is, significant. Perhaps there is no other edition of Bhagavad Gita where it is written as it is. Professor Dimmock of Chicago University has written a foreword, and he very much appreciates the theme. He says, Swami Bhaktivedanta comments upon the Gita from this point of view, and that is legitimate. She accepts that Bhagavad Gita as it is legitimate presentation of the great book of knowledge. He also says, more than that, in this translation, the Western reader has the unique opportunity of seeing how a Krishna devotee interprets his own text. So, about Krishna, the devotees actually can interpret about Krishna. Others, if they are not devotee, how they can interpret on Krishna? Just like a member of a family can say very nicely about the head of the family, how outsiders can say about the family. That is not possible. Similarly, about Krishna, a Krishna devotee can speak nicely, not others. Others have no right to speak about Krishna. And Krishna also admits Arjuna as the right student of Bhagavad Gita. In the beginning, Krishna says that I have selected you as my student because you are my friend and you are my devotee. So, in other words, we can understand that Bhagavad Gita can be understood who has intimate relationship with Krishna. Just as Krishna says, you are my dear friend. That is intimate relationship with Krishna. And without becoming a devotee, nobody can be intimately related with Krishna. These are the factors to be understood. So, this Bhagavad Gita,
No!
What do I do? Just click on one of these? Oh, this.
Nobody touched it.
Huh?
I asked him, nobody ever touched this. Well, you can't hear it. Turn up the volume and had this letter from Karandar in Los Angeles that
if anyone wants to know Krishna, what he is, then one has to accept the process of bhakti yoga. There are different types of yogas. Yoga means linking oneself with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, speculative yoga will not help us. You have to take concrete yoga. Concrete yoga is Krishna consciousness. So, we have given our introduction of the Bhagavad Gita that one has to understand Bhagavad Gita as it is directed in the Bhagavad Gita. There is direction how to read Bhagavad Gita. People are reading Bhagavad Gita without taking the direction. This we have explained in the manner that if you take some medicine, there is some direction on the bottle that this is the dose. You take so many drops, so many times, that is direction. Similarly, for understanding Bhagavad Gita actually, you have to accept the direction as given by the author himself, Krishna. He says that long ago, some 40 millions of years ago, he first spoke this Bhagavad Gita to the sun god. And sun god transmitted the knowledge to his son Manu. And Manu transmitted the knowledge to his son ISKCON. Imam vivassati yogam prattavan aham abhayam. Vivassan manave praha manu ISKCON vibravit. So, the Rajarsis, they are all kings. Manu is king, Maharaj ISKCON is also king, and the sun god Vivassan, he is also king. He is the king of the sun planet, and his grandson ISKCON became the king of this planet, Maharaj ISKCON. And in this dynasty, which is known as Raghuvansha, Lord Ramchandra appeared. It is a very old monarchical family, ISKCON Vansha, Raghuvansha. Vansha means family. So formally, the kings, the head of the administrative executive, they used to learn the thesis or the injunction given by God, because a king is you cannot do like that. Now I conclude here. That's all.
We should just change it. We can change those, we can pick up.
Due to Chitsugananda's fervent devotion, he was able to get this beautiful temple in Mexico City across from Chapultepec Park and fill it with wonderful angelic Mexican devotees. Prabhupada was very inspired and impressed by the Mexico City yatra. When he was there in Mexico, he talked a lot about the relationship between Catholicism and Krishna consciousness. That at heart there is no difference. He was struck, though, how the agony of Christ went against the grain of Vaishnavism. I remember one time in Mexico there, Prabhupada was resting in a room at a life member's home or something, and on the wall was a crucifix. Jesus in agony on the cross. I closed the door so Prabhupada could rest, and about a half an hour later I heard his bell ring, and I opened the door. He was sitting on the end of his bed looking at this crucifix on the wall. There were tears streaming down his eyes. And he said, "Just see, they have killed their spiritual master so that they can continue sinning. Please remove this from the room." And he had me take it out of the room.
I recall when Srila Prabhupada was invited to give an interview at a television station. And when Srila Prabhupada was greeted by the host of the show, who was one of the most popular hosts of any television show in Mexico, Srila Prabhupada was so humble. He was like a child. When the interviewer shook his hand to greet him, Srila Prabhupada smiled back at him with so much humility it practically melted my heart.
The short devotee who's wearing a white sari is Bhavatarini Devi Dasi. She was known to all of Prabhupada's disciples as Pishima, which means the father's sister in Bengali, because she was Prabhupada's sister. Pishima would come very often to the temple in Calcutta. That's me with my back to the camera. We were staying there too at that time. And she would bring prasadam for Prabhupada and for the devotees as well. She was a very gentle, kind, loving person. But there was a problem because Pishima cooked, as is traditional in Bengal, in mustard oil. And sometimes it would be hard for Prabhupada to digest her dishes, although they were very delicious. When Pishima heard about this problem, she said, "My brother can digest nails if he wants to." And on his side, Prabhupada once said, "Whatever my sister cooks, we have to eat. This is her display of love for me." And she had great devotion for her brother, not just because he was her brother, but also because he is such an exalted devotee of Radha Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada said that his sister was a devotee of Radha and Krishna from her very birth. Whenever we offered Pishima the respect that she so much deserved, she was very humble. She would say, "I'm a mere lady. I cannot give you anything. I cannot do anything for you." Quite often under her sari, she would carry a bottle of Ganga water or Jamuna water, and she would liberally sprinkle the devotees around her with this water, which was great fun, except for me because I usually had a camera with me. I would have to hide my camera under my sari when she pulled out her Ganga Jal.
That first Rath Yatra I have seen that is led by ISKCON Calcutta. That time I am reading in university, Calcutta University. I am a student. I was not initiated that time, but I am the follower of this movement. And among the family members, Prabhupada's family member, Pisima, myself and my sister Jalatala. Then there are not so many Bengali peoples because that time Bengali people, they are thinking, oh, these people are foreigners, because it is very new thing to them. How this could possible, being a foreigner, they are shaving their head, they are worshipping our deity, they are suspecting something. But how Prabhupada is merciful. The first publicity we got, front page in all the newspaper. They say this is the first time that foreign devotees are chanting and foreign devotees are going on the street with chariot. It is a miracle. And Prabhupada was very pleased. Prabhupada told us that every year you celebrate Rath Yatra, particularly in Calcutta, because Calcutta is a place where he started Rath Yatra at the age of 5. He was born in 1896 and he started Rath Yatra 1902.
I met Prabhupada at the Shipriya Park Pandal program. Then I decided that I should take Diksha or initiation from him, because what I have heard from his lecture is melted my heart. So when I met Srila Prabhupada, he inquired my name and where I have come from, what do I study. So everything I told him, and he said, you please come to the temple every day, see the programs, and you join every day whether you like or not, and then I'll give you Diksha afterwards. And then Prabhupada said, are you happy? I said, oh, I'm so much happy, Srila Prabhupada.
In the beginning, the mood was very nice. We are very, not so much rich, but we are pure in heart. We are very working hard, going to monument, esplanade to distribute. Even personally, once Prabhupada Maharaj told me, please come, and you are Bengali. I am the only Bengali boy. So every day used to go after my college over, then distributing book. And then when the Bengali people sees me, oh, you are a Bengali, you are foreigners, oh, maybe they are CIA. Then I told them why you are saying all these things, because their Guru Maharaj is Bengali. Oh, that Guru Maharaj is Bengali, is it possible? Yeah, you can come and see. And he was born in Calcutta. He went to abroad to preach this Krishna consciousness movement. Why not you are coming to our Calcutta temple? Then so many people are interested, Bengali people, they used to come and participate.
I was a new devotee then, and I was very doubting, skeptical. The devotees were so enthusiastic. Prabhupada's coming. This Mundakini was always screaming, shouting, Prabhupada's coming, Prabhupada's coming. And I was thinking, who is this Prabhupada? So then I was thinking, when Prabhupada came, I'll really scrutinize him and I'll test, see whether he's what I thought was, genuine. And I was thinking, well, maybe he'll be like a larger-than-life kind of figure, a bit flamboyant, glamorous, putting on a bit of a show. So then we were waiting inside, new bhaktas. So it was like a big build-up for us inside. And so we were watching the door, I was thinking, what's he going to be like? And then the door opened, and there was Prabhupada. And he was much shorter than I thought. And then I could see he was very composed. He wasn't in an emotional state. He's like a father when he comes back from work. When he returns home, he puts the key in the door, and then he walks in. And then it's like normal for him. He seemed like the most normal person. And I was surprised by that. If he was putting on some act, he wouldn't have acted like that. He seemed very genuine. I was pleased by that. He passed my test. I was expecting him to see him put on some kind of act. And then he went and sat on the Vyasasana after paying obeisances to the deities. And I thought, well, what's he going to say? Because I've been reading Prabhupada's books. And then I thought, well, he's only saying exactly what's in the books. So then again he passed the test. He didn't try and say anything new or invent something special. And he kind of passed my test in a way that I wasn't expecting. So I was satisfied.
In 1972 I was a temple president in London, and Srila Prabhupada noticed that there were so many boys and girls staying in the temple. In fact, in the morning sometimes you'd have to step over sleeping bodies to get down the stairs.
And we needed space to expand. And of course, asking George Harrison to give us a place was the logical course, but we had a policy never to ask George for anything. So during the spring and summer of 1970, I was living at George's new 38-acre estate in Oxfordshire, Friar Park, and I would often mention how crowded we were at Berry Place. And he would say, well, maybe I can do something about that. But it was only when Srila Prabhupada himself came out to Friar Park one day, and we were walking around these huge grounds, and George said to Srila Prabhupada that he thought at a place like this, and he waved his arms around, was needed for us.
Here we're looking at one particular property called Runnymede Park, which is very close to the River Thames. And so when George saw the place, and it hadn't been occupied for some years, and it was quite overgrown, he said this should be called Runny Down Park, because it hasn't been maintained for so long.
When I was a kid, I used to like to go, just in the countryside. I've always liked nature, the woods or the ocean or, gardens and natural things. I'm unhappy about the world being concreted over and all the forests chopped down and all the air polluted. I'm very unhappy about that, but I have a long-term view, which is all things must pass. I mean, before it used to be maybe they're going to blow us up with H-bombs. But even that, I thought, it don't really matter. They can't destroy what's within ourselves. Krishna said, there's no time when we didn't exist, and there'll be no time when we cease to exist. The only thing that changes is the body. But the music really was the key that opened the door into the yoga and the yogic philosophy and the Vedic scriptures, which is really the foundation of everything. It gave some sort of backbone to my life.
So I often had the chance to drive Prabhupada from the temple to the park where he was going to walk in our Ford Transit Sankirtan van. And he would sit in the front seat, chant japa quietly. Sometimes he would be reciting Shikshastakam in a barely audible voice, Cheto Darpana Marjana, like that. He would sing it to himself. I remember once we were walking in Hyde Park, and there was a big group of devotees, and they were all chanting japa, so it made quite a bit of noise. And there was some bum sleeping on a park bench. So he was woken up by this, and then he saw this big crowd of devotees bearing down on him, and he was a bit sort of frightened or freaked out. And the Prabhupada said, "Good morning," in a very polite way, and then he responded.
One morning in Russell Square, Prabhupada told the story of the yogi and the mouse, and he really got into it, and he started acting out the parts, and we all stopped, and he was entertaining us with the story. And finally, when he got to the sort of the punchline, when the mouse has been transformed into a cat and then a dog, and finally the mouse is a tiger, and turns towards the yogi, and Prabhupada acted the part of the tiger, and his eyes became very big. He said, "Oh, and now I will eat you." And then the yogi said, "Again become mouse." The way he acted out the part, his eyes became so big and wide. Prabhupada was such a wonderful entertainer. And one morning there was a couple of big swans. They were on the bank, and when the group came around, they retreated into the water. And Prabhupada said, "See, they feel safe when they take shelter of the water. Similarly, a devotee, takes shelter of Krishna and feels safe." Another morning, Prabhupada's servant had broken off some twigs for him to use as a toothbrush. And this was in Regent's Park. And his servant returned to the group, pursued by a park attendant, who was very upset that he'd broken the twigs off. And somehow the incident was diffused, but Prabhupada was disgusted. He said, either directly to the attendant or to us, he said, "You came to India for 200 years, you exploited and stole so many things from our country, and you wouldn't even let us take a twig from your park."
When I came to Bury Place and saw the deities, he was always very encouraging. He used to say things like, "Krishna's very happy here, thank you very much," and just like nod and smile, just a little something that actually kept us going. And one time when he came, he was saying that when the deities are beautifully decorated, your heart becomes beautifully decorated. And when your heart is beautifully decorated, then very soon you will see Krishna.
they'd been making a new Vyasa-san, so I'd been requested to upholster that Vyasa-san. So most devotees went off to the airport to meet Prabhupada, welcome Prabhupada. We were still trying to finish this thing up before he arrived, so we managed to finish, get it in the temple room, and it was green with gold trim around it. So Prabhupada came, and immediately everyone was offering his obeisances, and I was completely overwhelmed. I'd never seen such a personality. Immediately I had extreme emotions of crying and stuff, and I was quite overwhelmed. Then we went in, and Prabhupada took darshan, and we sat down on the Vyasa-san and started giving a lecture. And then just as he finished the lecture, he mentioned something about the Vyasa-san. Oh, this is very nice. And then he went upstairs. And as soon as he got there, it seemed like, just arrived. And then immediately somebody said, oh, Prabhupada was saying something about the Vyasa-san, you should go up there. So I went up, and Prabhupada said, I want 2 more Vyasa-sans. He said, yes, they should be small size, because every day Lord Brahma and Narada Muni come here for the evening artik. And there should be a Vyasa-san from each of them. It should look identical to my one, in small size. So I think we finished them in that same day, and next morning they were placed there. So Prabhupada was very appreciative the next day. He said, yes, they should always be here next to Radha Landaneshwara. And he told everyone, every day Lord Brahma and Narada Muni come here for the evening artik.
We went down early to Marble Arch to help decorate the cart. And Prabhupada arrived. Just again, when he stepped out of the car, the devotees just took off. They just left the ground, and there was such incredible joy on everyone's faces, and such a feeling of safety and security being around Prabhupada. And he sat on the cart that year. He didn't dance. And I just stayed by the Rath Yatra cart, by the rope, just in front of Prabhupada's Vyasa-san on his right side. And I don't think I ever looked forward in that Rath Yatra thing. I just looked at Prabhupada the whole way. I was really fascinated by him, because I was still pretty young. I was just turned 17.
When Prabhupada would ask if there were any questions at the end of the class, I'd never put my hand up, because I always felt that everything he said was fairly straightforward, everything made sense. But one morning, he began to talk about a golden age, about the Vedic age, which had ended 5,000 years ago. And he described that there was only one language, one culture, and one religion throughout the whole of the world. And I'd never heard this before, and I'd been very interested in history. And I had quite a hard time sort of taking this in, because it seemed to me that if that was correct, then the professors would be teaching this in the universities, and it would be appearing in the historical textbooks. But it sort of shook my faith a little in Krishna consciousness, in that it just didn't make sense to me. So I decided that I would investigate this myself. And I started to do that over the following years, and I discovered, to my surprise, that there was a great deal of information, and that everything that Prabhupada was saying, there is evidence for. And I've since spent 30 years actually just studying this very point. When Prabhupada first came to England, there was a press conference arranged by Apple. One of the newspaper reporters asked Prabhupada, what if you come here to teach? And Prabhupada said, I've come to teach what you have forgotten, that is all. And actually what Prabhupada has brought back to England, we can definitely say is exactly the same as existed here previously. All the Vedic gods were worshipped here. The language is from Sanskrit. The priests of Britain totally correspond to the Brahmins of India.
They performed fire yajnas. They divided their society into 4 spiritual and 4 social orders. There are dozens and dozens of parallels. And it's quite amazing that Prabhupada gave that answer. What he has brought is actually what we have forgotten, even in this country, Britain.
Just to note the triumphal look on Prabhupada's face and his whole manner. Look at that regal bearing. He's been to his Ratha Yatra in London. He's the king. We did everything in our power to make the situation around him so that he would appear as a king.
If you look at the faces of the devotees, they all look tense and sort of pensive and sad and anxious because, Prabhupada's leaving and he's been staying in London for 5 or 6 weeks, and now suddenly he's going, and it's a very sad moment actually. I mean, a lot of people will be bursting into tears once he's gone, I think. Some of them might already be tearful. And when Prabhupada's around for a few weeks, a month or 2 or 6 weeks, you start to sort of, just a little bit, you start to get used to it, take him for granted a bit. And I remember I used to think, this is Krishna's punishment. He's taking Prabhupada away because we're not appreciating him enough. We went with him right up to the passport barrier, but we couldn't go with him any further.
We're seeing the public faces of Prabhupada in these videos, but the private moments with Prabhupada in his rooms were, of course, the most attractive to the devotees. Those were not captured in film so much. But the end of the day or early in the morning, sitting in Prabhupada's room while he discussed the daily activities, or giving our reports at the end of the day of what we had accomplished during the day, these were the most delightful moments with Prabhupada, most intimate and surprising moments. Prabhupada never, for a moment, was predictable in any way. Everything he did and said was a complete surprise. In all the years that I used to open the door to his room and go in, I never ever lost that feeling of slight anxiety when I opened the door, that I couldn't predict what was going to happen. I knew it would be wonderful and it would be a total surprise, but you could never tell what the spiritual master was going to do or say. Goodbye, Prabhupada.